Hey everyone, Richard from Digital Foundry here, and today we're taking a look at the Xbox One X patch for Call of Duty Infinite Warfare, and joining me to discuss it, David Bearton.
Hello, Rich.
How's it all going?
Yeah, good, thanks. It's been nice to revisit Infinite Warfare again.
Yeah, so we did actually take a look at this one recently, and we checked out the original base code running enhanced on the X, just with out-of-the-box performance. We got a higher resolution and a locked 60 frames per second, but this is the actual 4K patch direct from the developer Infinity Ward, and some interesting results on this one. So why don't you run us through them?
Okay, so there's quite a few changes here. I guess we'll start with the most obvious one is resolution. Basically, with PlayStation 4 Pro, we were looking at dynamic 4K using checkerboard rendering. So obviously in situations where there isn't much in terms of load, we get up to that checkerboard 2160p, but it does kind of dip below in like more demanding scenes. Whereas for Xbox One X, the checkerboard rendering's been removed, so we're looking at dynamic resolution but without the sort of temporal reconstruction component.
Oh, that's interesting. I mean, I wasn't really too fussed about the checkerboarding on PS4 Pro because this is one of the kind of most filmic, post-heavy games that we've ever seen, and it just kind of literally blurred into the presentation, I think. But you're right, I mean, there is no checkerboarding on this one. Seems to be running at the same ballpark resolution, and so there is a little bit of extra clarity because it's actual native rendering as opposed to checkerboarding.
Yeah, that's right. Going into this, when I first heard they were using sort of dynamic resolution up to 4K, I was kind of wondering how much more of a benefit we'd get because, you know, PS4 Pro actually holds up really well in terms of image quality, and likewise if you looked at the difference between the base consoles, PS4, Xbox One, sort of 1080p, 900p at points, there wasn't a huge gap there. But going to the Xbox One X version, you can see the extra clarity, certainly in slower paced scenes where there's not so much in the way of motion blur and post-process going on. You actually do get a little bit of a benefit with sort of intricate details and like text on signs, that kind of thing.
Okay, well, from my perspective, I really like this game on Pro, and basically if it's the same on the X but with native resolution rendering, a bit more clarity, then I guess that's just a bonus.
Yeah, that's right. So that's what we get in terms of image quality, is kind of a little upgrade there. Beyond that, there are other things that have been sort of tweaked as well. I think the level of detail's been drawn out a little bit, so at a distance you get slightly lower quality models for things like geometry on PS4 Pro, whereas on Xbox One X, from what I can tell, you're getting the full high quality variants at a much further distance.
Okay, so that is an interesting addition. It's one of these things that it's nice to have but not exactly a game changer.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you know, looking at screenshots I could see what's going on, but it's not something I'd be able to notice during gameplay. It's really just the sort of little things that I guess they've got extra power to put back in.
It is interesting though, because we are getting, in addition to the native rendering, additional extra detail as well, which further adds to the GPU load. So yeah, I mean, it does show some indication of confidence in the hardware from Infinity Ward here.
Yep, and you've also got, to add to that, like a high quality depth of field as well, which was surprising to see, which creates a little bit more of an impact to those focal points during cutscenes and set pieces and whatnot. So yeah, they're definitely using the extra GPU power for more than just increasing the pixel counts.
Okay, so aside from those aspects, is there anything else on Xbox One X that's a cut above the Pro version?
From what I can tell, no. All the other sort of post-process effects, shadow quality, all of that appears to be the same as on PS4 Pro.
Okay, so I think the big question here is all about performance, because if we are getting these additional details and obviously a much higher GPU load thanks to native rendering as opposed to checkerboarding, then, you know, can we still get a locked 60 frames per second? I mean, by and large, the Pro version held up really well there.
Yeah, Pro was fantastic in that respect. You know, there was very little in the way of frame rate drops, and when you did get one, it was, you know, 1 FPS, 2 FPS. It wasn't really noticeable outside of one or two scenes where there was sort of streaming going on. But going into the Xbox One X version, I noticed that things wasn't quite as smooth when I was playing it. Things like the opening firefight, for instance, I noticed a bit of screen tearing creeping in. And yeah, the action just didn't feel quite as slick. You know, you didn't get that complete 60 FPS lock when I was I guess I was kind of expecting it to a point, seeing what we had on Pro.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, maybe they've just pushed too hard on here, but fundamentally, this game does have dynamic resolution scaling just like the Pro version. So in theory, we shouldn't really be seeing this. We should be seeing the resolution drop in order to sustain the target 60 frames per second, which Infinity Ward back in the day with the original versions, with the Pro version, they were so determined to get that lock. They did a fantastic job there, and I'm looking at some of the stutters and whatnot that we're seeing here. Bit disappointing.
Yeah, maybe they could have perhaps targeted the dynamic resolution a bit more aggressively here. Thing with Infinite Warfare, because there's a lot of post-processing, motion blur and film grain, it's not the kind of presentation where you're going to sort of notice a slight drop in image quality when you're running around shooting. It's not like you've got, ultra crisp visuals even when it is native 4K, and I think that maybe taking a hit in image quality a bit further under load would have been more beneficial here to get you closer to that 60 FPS lock.
Well, maybe there's a bit more optimization they can do in future. Maybe there are some tweaks to the dynamic scaler in order to more aggressively kick in and to iron out those issues there. But I do think we can rule out the CPU as being the problem here because, fundamentally the Xbox One X has a faster CPU than the Pro. So yeah, a curious one this. I didn't quite expect to see this going in. And I noticed that, yeah, you're right, the tearing is back. That was there on the base version of the Xbox One. The original code running on the X basically removed all of that. But with the 4K patch, it seems to be kind of back. And I don't think it's too intrusive on gameplay. It only seems to occupy the top of the screen. But at the same time, when it doesn't tear in these problem areas, you're getting drop frames. And that isn't quite the Call of Duty experience I remember from Infinite Warfare.
No, that's right. The stutters definitely stand out there. I mean, there are parts of the game that plays by at 60 FPS pretty smoothly, but again, yeah, it could be a bit more solid, especially compared to the Pro, which kind of does nail it for like 95% of the time or whatnot.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I mean, it is a big improvement over the base Xbox One version, which had trouble sustaining 60 frames per second for, basically any intense firefight. So it is an upgrade in that respect, but at the same time, PS4 and Pro, they kind of set the gold standard there for what we should expect from a Call of Duty game, and that is 60 frames per second lock. I mean, it is the Call of Duty signature. Right then, so I think we're going to wrap it up there. Pretty impressive upgrade. Nice to see some additional improvements over the Pro version, but fingers crossed that Infinity Ward will return to this one and attempt to get that same level of consistency that we see on the Pro there. Okay, well, thanks for that one, Dave.
No worries, Rich.
And yeah, please do like and subscribe to support the work we do here at Digital Foundry. This is a 4K video, so supporters of our Patreon can head over to digitalfoundry.net to download this file, 4K 60 source file quality. But that's all from us for now. Thanks for watching.